So hi, I'm Dominic Wellington, Director of Product Marketing for Data and AI at SnapLogic, and we'll be talking about agentic architectures. So going back to what you heard from Jeremiah and from David, companies everywhere are building agents. They're experimenting all over the place. Our friends at AWS and IDC ran a survey end of last year of 900 organizations. 23% are planning to get full deployment in 2026 and 65% in 2027. And this is not just, a tool that they use that's enabled AI capabilities. They're mixing those built-in capabilities with custom-built agents to complete tasks. They're deploying multi-agent solutions, but they're saying that multi-agent interoperability remains a concern for them. So this is the context that we're talking about. But why are so many enterprises interested in investing in AI agents? So fundamentally, there are three goals that they're after. So first of all is speed. They're trying to accelerate the time to value. They're trying to get tools into their users' hands, into their customers' hands, so that they can deliver value quickly to those people that is concrete, that is actionable. Secondly, they're after agility. They're trying to drive the human cost of integration to zero because most business processes don't run in just one tool. As we were just saying, you can't rely on just one vendor. You have to span multiple different tools. There are probably some homegrown capabilities as well that are very, very highly customized to your environment. And so when you need to make a change across all of those systems, you need to be very agile in how you do that so that you can in turn, be agile in responding to changes and taking advantage of opportunities that are out there. And that leads into the final point, the competitive advantage. Because if you can deliver fast, if you can be agile in responding to changes in the environment, and you can do all of that faster than your competitors can, then you gain competitive advantage. Vice versa, if your technological systems are preventing you from moving as quickly as you would like to in evolving your business, then you might be losing ground to other players in that business. So that's why people are looking to invest in these technologies so that they can get these benefits. And so an example of that process would be our customer Bison Transport, who you'll be hearing more from in the panel later. So they'd already decided 2026 was going to be their year of AI focus, but they realized that to achieve the goals that they had with AI, they were going to need a much better way of accessing their data and managing it and generally controlling and governing that whole process. So with SnapLogic, we were able to get them to a place where they were deploying their data pipeline 6 times faster than they were previously. And a big part of that was also unified data access so that there was one place to look for the data instead of having to go across 4 or 5 different systems. And the result of this was that their new transportation management system launched on schedule with no downtime. And those of you who've been around IT for any amount of time know that those are two things which unfortunately very rarely go together. And what that means, if we go back to what those business goals are, we want to move fast, we want to be very rapid in deploying these tools, and a key part of that is how quickly can we connect up to all of your core systems, apps, and data so that the agent can be fully in touch, in context with what's going on in your business. We want that agility to be able to respond to changes and opportunities. And so you have to be able to orchestrate the new AI capabilities coming from all of the other vendors in your environment, as well as what is being developed custom elsewhere in your organization. We want to be able to connect all of that. And finally, the competitive advantage so that you can trust the results of what's coming out. So you know that it's governed, it's controlled, it's secure, it's compliant. All of that is what enables you to turn it on in business critical use cases and environments. So that's where you get true human digital collaboration. The humans enabled and empowered by digital labor, but both of them looking at that same full real-time context of wherever it is located in your environment, whether it is in the cloud as a SaaS tool, whether it's in your private cloud, whether it's in an on-premises environment, a data center, from the cloud right to the network edge, because these are the systems that the humans are using to run the business, and now the AIs will also need that same access, so you need that universal accessibility. After all, agents cannot act without that context, so they need that secure access to the systems, the apps, and the data where they can find that context, where they can extrapolate that context from. With over 1,000 snaps already available, SnapLogic already gives you that connectivity, as well as through the API side of things as well. And then for the newer systems and the AI features of existing systems that get added, you also have access to the Model Context Protocol, which is emerging as the standard for agentic connectivity. So here's what that looks like. On the left-hand side of the screen, you have your agent, and that runs what's called an MCP client, which gives it access to all of these tools and capabilities. But we don't just connect up the MCP client to the MCP server. SnapLogic also gives you an AI gateway, which sits between the two and ensures the authentication and authorization. Who are you? What data do you have access to? Is that what you should have access to? So it gives you that control. Then the MCP server hosts the tools and the resources which we want to give to the agent, the access that we want to give to the agent, but still with that control, with the policies that we decide to apply to it, with the trusted identity, including propagating that identity all the way from the end user that the agent is acting on behalf of, and the human in the loop, who is potentially also intervening in the process. And then that MCP server, through the snaps, through the APIs of the core SnapLogic platform, it then has access to all of your systems, whether they're in the cloud or whether they're inside your corporate firewall. The promise of SnapLogic has always been that we can run the pipelines inside the firewall. Your data never leaves your firewall. That security remains also in this new world. So the advantages of AI do not require you to compromise on your other controls. So to recap the specific capabilities that we want to call out here, the AI gateway there, which adds these authentication and authorization policies as part of the Model Context Protocol, and taking advantage of existing platform capabilities, but updated and extended to this new world, such as the traffic management, the throttling that helps you limit the number of connections, avoid a misbehaving agent potentially overwhelming a target system. That was undesirable in the previous world of APIs, and it remains very undesirable in the new world of AI agents. We are also continuing to extend these capabilities, looking at the token policies. Some of these capabilities can be expensive in terms of the tokens, and there can be differences in how you consume those tokens, and so we can help you optimize those costs. So stand by for more of these features coming soon. And secondly, the trusted agent identity. I mentioned before that agents act on behalf of a human user. We can ensure that the access that human user has is propagated to the agent so that it has the same access as the person that they're working for, but no more access than that. In certain models, there was the approach that the agents would act with a sort of system privilege that had access to everything, and then you try to reconcile that afterwards. That never quite works. And so securely propagating the authentication token from the end user to the agent all the way to the core business systems, make sure that you have that end-to-end control, as well as the after-the-fact tracking of which human user the agents were working for. And so that's why SnapLogic Agent Creator with the Model Context Protocol can truly be the orchestration layer for enterprise AI. You can build agents directly in SnapLogic without needing any other tools. You can access data and tools in other systems via MCP directly from SnapLogic pipelines. You can offer connectivity to core business systems via SnapLogic's 1,000+ snaps for agents developed anywhere else, third-party agents. And you have full observability and governance throughout that process. Let's start to get a bit more detailed about how that actually works. Model Context Protocol is now an open source protocol which has become adopted as the way that agents connect to the world. The idea is that AI models and agents can run an MCP client. That MCP client then connects to MCP servers, which can expose to them tools, resources, and prompts in a way that the MCP client, and through it, the AI agent at the other end, can consume. So what this looks like in a SnapLogic world is you have your AI agent, your Claude, your ChatGPT, whatever it might be. It has its MCP client, and it can connect up to a SnapLogic pipeline, which can act as an MCP server and instantly connect up to all of your business systems. We put some icons here on the screen. It could be SAP, Salesforce, Oracle, it could be anything. The point is you have those 1,000+ snaps that give you that connectivity, and that is now instantly accessible also to a new generation of AI agents. And it also works in the other direction. A SnapLogic pipeline can itself call out to any MCP server elsewhere as more and more tools and platforms add these capabilities, and as people build their own MCP servers for their own purposes. One third-party marketplace hosts nearly 19,000 public MCP servers. So all of these are also instantly accessible to the SnapLogic pipelines. So you have full visibility and connectivity end to end. So I'm joined today by my colleague Roger Sramkoski, who's going to show us a demo of how this actually works in the SnapLogic UI. Take it away, Roger.
Thank you, Dominic. As Dominic mentioned, my name is Roger Sramkoski. I'm a senior solutions engineer here at SnapLogic. And what I'm going to show you today is MCP server in SnapLogic, sort of full build for pipelines. We're going to start with two sort of high-level things. The first is that I want to just talk to all of our existing customers that are with us today. What you're looking at right now is actually our refreshed UI. So you're going to see things that are a little bit different, and I'm not going to go through everything. Just a heads up, the things that we will talk about today are going to be these two new build options, pipeline and MCP server. With that said, let me jump over to my pre-existing MCP server that's part of our demo today. And before we dig into this, I just want to take one moment to set up the story of the data that we're working with and sort of the role we're going to take today. So we're going to imagine ourselves in a sales or customer success management role, and we are looking for a way to use natural language to get access to our enterprise data and then get some help with analysis, right? Our goal in these roles is to obtain, keep, and grow customers. And so we're just looking away for that AI human interaction that Dominic was talking about, to try and become better at what we do and more equipped to go have those human-to-human conversations. So let's start by looking at this pipeline. This is the 4-snap pattern that you would have for any MCP server that you would like to build in SnapLogic. And you're not going to really touch or have to modify anything here except for this first one. And this is where, if I sort of expand this out so you can see it, this is where we would list all the tools that we want to have access to. So in today's demo, we just have two tools, one that will list our Salesforce opportunities and another one that will go and fetch details about those opportunities if needed. And it's really the agent that will decide. And so if I just close this, or sorry, before I close this, let me say, when you hit this plus sign in this bar, this is where we would get the ability to just choose a drop-down box to pick another tool. So it's really that easy to expand what your MCP server does. Is once the tool is ready to go, you would just hit that and add in the new tool. So let me discard this for a moment and talk high level about this pipeline and what happens. And I'm going to tie that all together at the very end when we look at an actual call to this in the monitor. So the first time an agent or LLM makes a call to this pipeline, we're going to go out this upper branch of the MCP server router. And really what that does is it just gets a list of all the tools, the tool description, tool requirements, things along those lines. That's what it gets the first call. Then once the agent understands what can be called, it will make a second call and it will go use this dynamically configured pipeline execute to call whichever tool is needed. So again, that's really why all you need to modify here and work with is this very simple, very streamlined pipeline, multi-pipeline function generator. All right. So we've built this pipeline and now we want to actually go and turn it into an MCP server. So how do we do that? The first thing we need to do is a new setting here. If we look in properties, is make sure that this is toggled on as an MCP server. Okay, that's part one. Part two is in the new build options, I can click MCP server, and now I have a new configuration wizard to help me set this up. And you'll see the pipeline's validated in the background and the MCP server is red, but that's fine for what we're doing. So let's give this a live demo example just so we can walk all the way through this. So we'll call it AgentFest 2026 live demo 3. Just because I'm possibly sure there's more there hiding for us. Now, if we come down a little bit, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to choose our pipeline source. It's already determined that we're going to use the one we're on. So we just need to figure out where this runs. And this goes back to Dominic's diagram around making sure that you understand where your pipelines execute. So yes, we are going to be retrieving enterprise data. And if that is sensitive data that you want to keep behind your firewall, you can deploy one of these Snaplexes behind your firewall and keep the pipeline executing there. Run behavior, triggered and ultra is just what method, if it's always running or if it's just going to start up when called. We're going to go with triggered for now. We're going to leave timeout alone. But now what I really want to focus on is our new policy management. So this goes into the governance piece that Dominic was talking about. And ever so quickly, I want to show you what it's like to be able to look at existing policies and understand what they can do. So for example, we have a true anonymous, or we could select something with an OAuth token. What I also want to show you though is how these policies are created, because this massively simplifies how you secure and govern these MCP servers. And so this is our new MCP policy editor, which if you are using or seen anything around our API management, you'll notice it's very similar. So we're keeping that user experience the same for you. And let me show you what it's like. So for example, if I wanted to, just because it's easy to configure for now, we're going to go with anonymous. And you'll see how these policies show up in the appropriate place. So for example, if I want to do client throttling as well, then I could add authorization, transformation. Right, there's certain policies that work with MCP, and so that's what you'll see here, and then be able to configure just like what you would with APIM. All right, so let me go back to my previous tab. And let's save this new one just so that we can see what happens next. Right. So here we have it. The new MCP server has been created. We can see it's enabled, where it's running, who owns it. And if we scroll down a little bit, you can see that we are giving you a single URL. That's all you'll have to worry about. We have also added, but we won't demo here today, that there are some automatic checks and balances that occur in this server information. So if you're missing a load balancer, if there's no nodes available, all of that's there as well to help simplify getting ready to host this. And then we can always go back to edit config. One last thing I want to show you on the MCP server specifically side of things is if I hit view in manager, we can now see this in manager. And if I just hit done for a second and I get rid of this pre-populated search, what I want to show you is that you can now have a MCP server asset tab in your project manager. So that allows you to see any of the MCP servers and quickly configure them again from here. Now that we're back in Designer, we've seen how to set up an MCP server. We've seen what's necessary to configure. We've seen how we would add new tools. And we understand that this is a pattern that's quickly deployed and copied for additional MCP servers. What I want to talk about next are the two specific tools. And then we're actually going to see this run. So our first tool, and if we think about this from a story perspective as well, what I would want to do if I was that sales or CSM agent is list my opportunities, or list opportunities that meet a certain criteria. And that's what this small pipeline does for me. Now, a couple things is we're letting the agent determine the query that will be used. But what you have to do to configure this to work as a tool is in properties. When we're checked as standard, we now have a new option to mark this as a tool. And that's what allows it to show up in the MCP server's multifunction generator. All right, so this is the first step. The second step is to make sure that you have any parameters configured that the LLM or agent is going to need to pass over to us, right? So in this case, we need the query and we have a limit with a default value of 10 that can be overridden. Now I'm going to click on the next tab here, and this is where I would define to make sure that the LLM understands which fields are required, what data types should be sent. This is the tab that we would go to make sure that is all set up. The final piece here in preparing this is on the info tab is this purpose field. So if I expand this down and pause on it for a moment so you can read it, this is where you're setting up the prompt or the description for the LLM. the agent, to understand more about what this does. So it's got the high level up top. It's got available fields that it can use. And then as you scroll down, it sees it's got kind of the other rules that it has to think about, right, when it's preparing to make this call. And that's really it. So it's really operating inside of these pieces to make sure that you have the information available. You don't necessarily have to worry about cleaning up the output all that much because it's an LLM and it will translate that for the human being into a clean way. And I'll show that to you in a moment. So let's take a look at our last tool just to make sure that this sinks in on the tool concept. So this is a simpler one. This one's only ever going to get in one record and output one record. So we don't have to worry about that second snap. But let's just reiterate what we just went through. So again, we're marking it as a tool. We're defining our parameters. OpenAI is configured. And then this has its own separate description. So I'll pause it here just for a second in case anybody wants to read it. But other than that, we're going to move right on to actually seeing this work outside of SnapLogic and calling this. So these assets that I've just shared with you, they are live. And so let me go ahead and transfer over to Claude, and I'll show you how that looks today. All right, folks, now that we're in Claude, let me go ahead and paste in the prompt that I copied over. So again, from that sales perspective, we're asking what are our largest open opportunities closing in the next 90 days? Then give me the full details of whichever one looks most at risk. So there's really two things going on here. And we're going to take a look. So the first you can see here is just, as we talked about, right? That first call is the agent trying to understand what tools has available. And then the second part you can see is it actually calling our list opportunities. And here you can actually see the data, right? This is hidden from the user, so it's still natural language to the user's perspective, but it's always here to understand what's going on. All right, so here's our sample data, right? And again, what we did was we fetched these records from Salesforce. We didn't say anything in our prompt about, other than identifying the one at risk. We didn't say anything about give us next steps or anything, right? So we're going to see what kind of help the AI is giving us as we prepare for that human-to-human interaction for any accounts that are at risk. So first thing here is it's identified the most at-risk account is Meridian Health Systems. And this is all mock data, by the way. So, we have the traditional Acme, but if anything else aligns with a real company, it's purely on accident from randomly generated data. So as we come through, we have the full list of all of the rest of our opportunities, right? But more importantly is down below. And again, we just asked it to identify the one at risk, but here it's actually giving us that breakdown, right? And so this is where you have the AI and the human working together. And you can kind of come all the way down to understand why it's at risk. So we're getting that analysis of it, suggested next steps, and then even sort of AI analysis on the read of it, right? So this is two tools being used by Claude that were built on and served up by in a secure way through SnapLogic. And if we wanted to have another tool here to send an email, create a report, all of that's possible. You're not limited to two. It's really up to your creativity. Dominic will get into that a little bit more on something we built internally. But yeah, I just want to point out, right, that this is really up to you and how you want to do it. We're here to help you that connective tissue between these systems, which is something we've been helping enterprise customers do in a scalable way for 20-ish years. All right, so let me hop back into SnapLogic now, and we'll take a look there at the monitor. Now that we're in monitor, we can actually see those calls that we just made. So you can see there's two that are coming through just for listing tools. The ones with child pipelines, if I expand these, you can actually see the child pipelines that we had, the tool calls, right, that occurred in order for Claude or any other agent to get that data. As you scroll through, there's additional information available around where it was called, where it executed, basically a full history of this runtime. And I could go into these each and get a lot more information, but we'll save that for another time. That's it for this demo. Thank you so much. Dominic, back to you.
Thanks for that, Roger. What we saw was how we can achieve concrete benefits from AI with SnapLogic's agentic fabric. So Roger showed us how we can connect to every system with 1,000+ snaps with API management and now MCP client and server support. We can also orchestrate communication between agents and also between agents and humans. And we have that governance and trust layer thanks to the AI gateway, trusted agent identity, and all the MCP metrics with full observability. And this is something that we use ourselves at SnapLogic. So we have an agent that we call Jean-Paul. It sits in our corporate Slack, though it's already also been ported to Teams. And it's connected to all of the systems that we use to run SnapLogic, the business, delivering real work output, not generic answers that anyone could get. So it's connected to 15 of our internal systems. It has 45 tools, and I'm sure that both of those numbers are already obsolete by now. As I say, we've been using it internally for real-world use cases, and we have a 30% increase in sales productivity thanks to Jean-Paul, which maps to a 37 times return on the investment we put into it. And it talks to all of our internal systems, as I said, so things that are specific to us, the SnapLogic platform itself, but also the tools that we use to run our business, things that you would recognize as Salesforce, ZoomInfo, Zendesk, Jira, etc., etc. It has the capability to read and to write documents, and just generally to help us do our jobs, to understand capabilities that are out there in the market and how we are able to best support our customers. Let's take a look at what Roger just showed us, how that would appear for a user. So this is the interface to Jean-Paul running in our corporate Slack. So you can see this is his home message. He's explaining, Jean-Paul is a fully autonomous business agent powered by SnapLogic, and it has direct access to all of these different systems as we just saw in the architecture diagram. So if I want to work with Jean-Paul, I flip over to the messaging interface and I can say, please give me a report with everything we know about our customer, NovaBio. And so now Jean-Paul is going to go off, is going to contact all of those various different tools that are relevant for this query in order to put together a comprehensive customer report about NovaBio. So at this point, Jean-Paul is contacting our Salesforce CRM, our Zendesk ticketing system, etc. You can see the explanation for everything that it's doing. It's querying multiple systems simultaneously, and in a moment we'll get our report back. And he's given me this full account overview for the customer NovaBio. So we can see the account health. They're pleased with us, which is good because they've been with us since December 2014. So they're a pretty long-standing customer of ours. And we can see everything about them. So their whole corporate goals and strategic priorities. That informs, of course, how we talk to them, the sorts of projects that we might try to propose to them or support them with. It's already identified some key integration opportunities that we might suggest to them. The history of the business that we've done with them in the past, any tickets that they've raised with us. So good news, we haven't had any critical issues. We have had some other issues that we've had to deal with. So, we can go into that, and that would be very useful. We can see the number of nodes that they have with us, the size of the infrastructure. So this is talking directly to the SnapLogic backend. So we can see all of that. You can see their platform usage analytics. So they had a bit of a spike around the end of the year, and then they brought that back down. So we happen to know what was going on with those projects. The data processing volume spiked then and has been decreasing a little bit since. Again, there's some specific customer reasons for this. And our raw usage data right at the bottom that's underpinning all of these fancy graphs. Here's another example of the sorts of things that we can do with Jean-Pierre. So this is a response from a request that we got from a customer, or a prospective customer, I should say. I was asking whether we could support them with a Snowflake project that they had. And so the salesperson simply forwarded the email from the customer to Jean-Pierre and asked him over email to put together a response to the customer requirements. And there we have it. So we can see exactly the sorts of response that we could give, the capabilities that we have that we can propose for exactly the integrations that the customer has or the prospective customer has as their requirement. And this is generated just from the original email from the customer with a very basic prompt. Hey, can you help me respond to this customer requirement? And I'm sure that between the demo and talking about Jean-Paul, you probably also have some ideas for how you could apply these capabilities in your business. So we run these events that we call the Agent Creator Bootcamp. And these are some stories of customers who joined these bootcamps. These are multi-day events. and what they were able to build just over the course of the bootcamp. So Mind is a UK charity, and like any charity, they have to try to achieve the maximum benefit with the funds that are made available to them. And so they use multiple systems, multiple platforms for their fundraising, and they need to be able to integrate data from all of them, normalize all of the different formats that each of these systems use, and maintain attribution to their campaign so they can understand what is the most effective thing that they can do for their mission. Once again, their mission as a charity, they're not there to be technologists. And so they were able, just over the course of a couple of days' work in this bootcamp, to build out at least the beginnings of that system that can help them with these goals. PlanView, much more similar to SnapLogic, actually, they're a software vendor, and so they were trying to do the same sort of thing that we do, build structured customer health reports. Their problem is they have so many different systems that the reports, when they just pulled everything that they knew about a customer, were overwhelming. And so they put in a multi-stage reasoning approach that could summarize, identify the most important things that the human users at the end of this process needed to do their jobs. And finally, Unite Students, they manage student housing. And so they built a system during the bootcamp, an email system. So you're a student, you're going to university in the fall, and you want to be able to sign up for housing. And so you can have an email exchange with the system. It maintains the context, it understands your preferences and priorities, but it is also privacy first. So some very cool, very concrete use cases. And again, these are built over the course of just a couple of days during the bootcamp. So if that sounds interesting, we would love to see you at one of the boot camps as soon as we can make that happen. The next one up is on the 18th of May, but you can see all of the dates either by scanning the QR code with a device, or there'll be a link in the chat right away for you to be able to follow. But we look forward to seeing you at one of these events in the near future. Until now, we've talked about how you can build new AI-powered experiences in the SnapLogic platform. Now let's talk about how AI can help you build faster in SnapLogic. Successful AI projects rely on seamless access to data that is specific to you and your context. SnapLogic has the capability to orchestrate and govern how AI connects to your data. Now let's talk about how SnapGPT makes all of that happen fast. So those of you who've been using SnapLogic for a while will probably be aware of SnapGPT. Those of you who haven't can probably guess based on the name what it is, but just to be clear, SnapGPT is an assistant that uses natural language to help you build, analyze, and describe the data pipelines that connect AI agents, or anything else, to your data, your apps, your systems. Here's what it looks like on screen, and don't worry, we'll get into more depth later in the demo. But basically, what's happening here is on the right-hand side, we prompted SnapGPT to create a pipeline that connects to Salesforce, reads some data, does something with it. And in the main area, what we see is it has created just that. It's reading data out of Salesforce, and it's filtering it in various ways and writing it back out, and it's explaining what it's done. This is how you can build data pipelines faster so that you can deploy new capabilities more rapidly, be more agile, respond to new opportunities that emerge, and generally achieve the business success that you're going for. What that looks like in practice, here we have a couple of customers talking about how they were able to build and deploy their workflows in under an hour, where previously it was taking them days. So thanks to SnapGPT, they were able to accelerate that process enormously because it lets them quickly build out accurate end-to-end pipelines. So these are very powerful capabilities to have in your toolbox if you're trying to build data pipelines fast to support new initiatives such as AI. And SnapLogic is the right partner for you on this journey because we didn't just wake up last week and say, oh wow, this AI thing is pretty cool. We've been building AI capabilities since 2017. The first AI-powered capability SnapLogic had was called Iris. This was effectively an autocomplete feature. It would suggest the next logical action. So you would drop a snap into your canvas that read some data, and then it would suggest, oh, maybe you want to filter the data, maybe you want to sort it, maybe you want to write it out to some other system, so it would suggest these options to you. That's already pretty powerful. Then the autolink is another machine learning powered capability that helps you map data formats between different systems. Again, very helpful. But then SnapGPT, with the renewed interest in generative AI from 2022 onwards, we were very quick off the mark because we had this background. And so early in 2023, we already went live with SnapGPT, and it was able already in that first release to create a pipeline to help you generate expressions and scripts, to generate documentation for your pipelines, a very important capability, to help you build out database queries and even sample data so you could test out your pipelines. And so that first release was already pretty capable, but then we continued to build on it through the subsequent years, adding important capabilities such as the ability to analyze a pipeline, to be aware of parameters, as well as new AI capabilities such as conversational memory and retrieval augmented generation. And then last year we added source citation, so you can be sure that the recommendations are coming from the SnapLogic docs, and you can follow those links and see where it came from. Awareness of what's going on the canvas, what you might have placed there yourself manually. Imaged pipeline, so you have a graphical representation of the pipeline you need. Give that SnapGPT, it'll build it out for you. The Snap Copilot inside of the snaps, and the new reasoning model. And there's a lot more to come on that front too. And it's not just about capabilities that are built into SnapGPT itself, there's also the way it interacts with other capabilities of the platform, such as the pattern library. The public pattern library is a whole set of ready-to-use templates that you can either use as is or take as a starting point for your own customization. And you can also build out a private pattern library of patterns that are specific to your organization, to your context. And SnapGPT will read from that when it's asked to build a new pipeline so that you can very quickly implement best practices and development standards across your organization by just having them seamlessly built into the tools. In the same way, SnapGPT supports an automated quality checker, so you can validate that your pipeline is doing the right things. Have you remembered to add error handling? Maybe the way you've set up this snap could cause some issues. Right now, you can do that interactively. We're working to make it so that you can build it into your CI/CD pipelines as well as a gate that you have to go through to get into production. And that's all part of moving SnapGPT beyond day one tasks. So when we talk about day one, that's the sorts of things that a new user or an infrequent user of SnapLogic might need to help them get up to speed. A power user needs different capabilities. They will often need to do things like understand the pipeline somebody else built, make sure everything is documented. They need to optimize a pipeline that's already correct in terms of logic, but it needs to have the best performance, or maybe there's some corner cases they need to troubleshoot. And even if you're fully conversant with SnapLogic, you can build yourself in the canvas faster than you can prompt SnapGPT, you'll occasionally run into situations where you need to build a SQL query or a regular expression to talk to some target system, and SnapGPT can help you with that too. But the proof that this transition is happening, that it's not just day one users, but it's power users using this capability, is that actually the most used prompt in 2025 was describe the pipeline. And that's not the sort of thing a day one user will need. And further proof of the evolution of the tool is that SnapGPT now has dedicated modes of thinking for different tasks. So standard thinking is optimized for speed and less complex tasks. You need to document a pipeline, generate a regular expression, do the pipeline quality check or snap configuration. These are all things that you can do quickly in one pass. Extended thinking is advanced reasoning so that you can generate more complex, more comprehensive, more optimized pipelines. And it lets you provide much more detailed prompts so you can get higher quality results. What's coming soon is plan mode, where you can validate your plan for a particularly complex pipeline generation ahead of time before executing it. So SnapGPT will come back to you with a plan, and you can then approve the plan it suggests, or you can modify it further and customize it and adapt it to make sure that you have something that is ready to get to production quality without having to go round and around and around before you can get to that point. Now, those of you who are SnapLogic power users will know and love the data preview capabilities that are built into the pipeline editor that show you what the data looks like at each step of your pipeline. So what we've done now is we have added the preview data insights so that you can get more context on the structure of that data. So you can understand things like local customizations of data formats, but also so you can identify more sensitive data, personally identifiable information, or you can have validation and business rules. Now, this is obviously looking a little bit more in depth at the data, and so it's an opt-in feature to preserve data security in sensitive environments. So let's take a look at how some of these capabilities would operate in practice. Roger, take it away.
Thanks again, Dominic, for the introduction. So let me go ahead and we're going to focus on two things today. We're going to focus on the metadata intelligence or get data insights that Dominic just showed, and we're going to focus on extended thinking. So in the lower right-hand corner, we can see the extended thinking option. So I'm going to go ahead and select that for a pipeline. And I have this blank canvas with a couple notes just to help me. So I've pre-built my prompt. So this is what we're going to run, and I'll leave it there just so everybody can kind of see it. We're going to run this, and we're going to talk a little bit about and kind of watch how it comes through. So it's going to go ahead and do its thinking around what it wants to do. But what I like that it starts to do is even before it builds a pipeline, even before it pops that up, it's going to start walking you through its thinking process, right? So it identifies the snaps that it's going to need. Ultimately, it's going to then write the file. And then that's where we're going to go ahead and drop that onto our canvas and show what happens next. At this point, SnapGPT has completed its processing of our pipeline. And I'm going to go ahead and import this on a new tab. And for those who are unfamiliar with SnapGPT, there's a couple things to know about it. One is that it's highlighting all of the fields that it interacts with. So you'll see that here, it gave us a label for a pipeline. And as we import that, if I come in and show you, it has configured everything for us exactly like we asked. Right? So if I go and click on the mapper, it's mapped everything out, including flattening of fields. What I want to do to help show the data insights, though, and then we're going to work with this, and I'll show you a little bit more about extended thinking, is I'm going to go ahead and drop in my Salesforce developer instance. This is the same instance where that demo data existed for our MCP demo. And now let's go ahead and validate this pipeline so that we can pull in that subset of records. And we're not going to build this all the way through in terms of making Redshift work. We put it there for continuity purposes, but let's go ahead and take a look. So as a builder of a pipeline, you would come in here and you would take a look at this data. And again, it's all mock data in a dev instance. But you know, maybe there's some fields you're not quite sure of, or you want to make sense of the data faster to see what you should be paying attention to. And this is where data insights comes in handy. So I'm going to click get data insights, and SnapGPT is now going to start analyzing this. And we're going to watch it kind of go through. It's going to go through and give us a bit of information. Actually, let me make this a little bit larger here for this part. So a couple things that this going through. One, it's not just telling us what the field is. Because it was actually given preview data, it can actually call out to us and say, hey, there are nulls in this field. And we're going to see later on where it suggests how we might handle that. Okay. Come down a little further, and it's going to jump here at some moment. It'll jump to the bottom when it's all done, but we're going to keep going as well as we can. There we are. So let me scroll back up. Okay, so it's going to talk about compliance fields. It's going to talk about a metadata table. So if you need to get some more information about certain fields, if you want a human readable explanation of what that is. And then as we scroll down, it's going to start talking about each individual field, some ways that we could clean it up. Right, so under amount, it's suggesting here that we want to make sure we're only looking at greater than 0, right? And we didn't ask for this in that prompt, really. This is the extended thinking, helping us understand our ultimate goal, sort of inferring what we're looking for. There's another one I wanted to come down and talk about too. So, for example, close date, it's saying value span from 2020 to 2026. So we'll just kind of skim through the rest of this, but then we're going to start with that close date. All right. Just so everybody can get a sense of what's going on and give you the opportunity to pause if you're watching later. Now let's go ahead and say update Salesforce to only fetch opportunities from 2026. All right, I'm not going to tell it how to do it, right? But it's going to come through and it's going to do this. And it's going to give us a diff of the pipelines. So we'll let this go through and then we will talk about what's going on. All right, so as it's starting to think, let's go ahead and take a look, right? So it's suggesting a new pipeline, that's fine. And I'm going to go ahead and hit replace current. That's fine, we'll exit out of the account. But here's what I wanted to draw our attention to, right? So it's giving us a diff. So it says, this is what we had before, right? This is what we have after. And if we come in and we take a look, scroll down towards the bottom, we can see that it did in fact update this. All right. Now let me drop my account back in here real quick just so we can revalidate. I kept it, perfect. Now let's do one more thing. So I'm going to hop back over to my other pipeline. And I'm going to copy an additional prompt. All right, now that we're at this stage, I want to run one more prompt with a little bit more complexity here. And I'll go ahead and fire this off. And this is now asking it to work with the metadata analysis and add in a router. Now that SnapGPT has completed this new version, let's go ahead and replace again. And let's talk about what's happening here. All right, so if we look at the response, it's acknowledging, it's thinking, it's listing here, right? All 3 Redshift insert snaps, it's doing its own checks. Now, what it did though, was it actually gave me multiple branches and it's using business logic from metadata insights to make sure that we're only looking at specific deals, and those deals that don't meet the business criteria or even just the plain old Salesforce hygiene criteria, they're going to be routed to different tables in this case, right? So it makes analytics a little bit easier. When somebody's analyzing this data downstream, they're able to just look at the valid opportunities, those that are sort of valid but failed some business rules, and those that just flat out are bad hygiene because they're missing required fields. So just another example of how SnapGPT's extended thinking can be used to continue to work on and iterate on a pipeline based on what's already in the context window for you. So thanks again, everybody, for your time. Dominic, back to you.
Thanks, Roger. That was great. So I hope this gave you all some ideas about how you can use SnapGPT in your own process with SnapLogic. It's already active in all non-production environments unless your admins have specifically asked to have it turned off in your environment. But if there's any mismatch there, by all means do let us know. If you need some more inspiration for how to use SnapGPT in your own practice, you can scan the code on the screen with your device, and that'll take you to a playlist of videos with various ideas and SnapGPT features that you can apply immediately. But with that, thank you very much from Roger and from me, and now back to you, Dale, for the rest of the session.